In a world where everyone strives to win arguments, let me share a story about how Socrates taught his students to seek truth rather than victory. How he used simple conversation to teach us one of life's most important principles: to listen, to understand, and to pursue common understanding. This story will forever change the way you perceive communication. Quietly, on a narrow Athenian street, I watched a scene unfolding before me. Two young men, one arguing passionately, the other defending himself with all his might, desperately standing by his point of view. Everything around them seemed to freeze, and I, as always, found myself wondering, what is the purpose of these words? I approached them and began with a simple question that might lead them to reflection. "My friends, may I ask, what are you trying to prove? Do you want to be right, or do you seek the truth?" A young man named Philip, his eyes blazing with intensity, was the first to respond. "I claim that what I say is true. I must prove it." The young man was full of determination, and his voice trembled with conviction. But I, as always, knew that true wisdom does not come from winning arguments, but from discovering the potential for growth within ourselves. "Let me ask you, Philip, if you were to prove you're right, what would it change, for you or for the world?" Philip fell silent, his gaze less certain. He began to realize that truth is not always found in winning a verbal battle. It was then that his opponent, Theophilos, interjected. "I disagree with Philip, but I can't understand why he is so adamant about proving his point. I just want to understand, not win the argument." Now it was getting interesting. This conversation was turning into something more significant than just a dispute between two young men. I knew that the goal here was not simply to win, but to find a path to truth. "Theophilos, you say you want to understand. That is a wise intention. But how can you understand if you are not willing to listen to the person you are arguing with? Wisdom comes through dialogue, not through victory. Each of us may be wrong. So perhaps your perspective is not the whole truth, but just one part of it." Philip looked thoughtfully at Theophilos, and Theophilos in turn tried to find something valuable in Philip's words. "Perhaps I don't agree with you, Philip, but I see something in your words that I hadn't noticed before. You're right, the truth is not always black and white." Gradually, their conversation began to shift toward genuine mutual understanding, where each listened to the other's point of view without simply trying to win. You see, when we argue, we often lose sight of the most important thing, the true meaning of our words and actions. Dialogue is not a battle, but a quest for shared understanding, where both participants can walk away with new knowledge. If you wish to master the true art of communication, forget about victories and focus on making each step of your conversation a step toward truth. The young men, noticing how their argument had transformed into a constructive dialogue, began to agree with each other, and their conversation became much more productive. In the end, their rivalry gave way to mutual respect. And so, a simple conversation rooted in questions and a sincere desire for understanding led to a change in how these young men viewed the world and communication itself. I know that no victory in an argument is worth more than the moment when we find common ground with a friend and realize that truth is not something to be conquered, but something to be discovered. Now, my friends, if you wish to become wise, remember, what matters is not winning the argument, but arriving at the truth. Because in dialogue, we not only teach one another, but also learn ourselves.